we're back with another stack of bass gadgets. Will they make you a better bassist, or will they burn a hole in your wallet and gather dust in the closet? I'm putting another 10 gadgets to the test to find out. As usual, there's no affiliate links, no sponsors, no BS. Let's just see what happens. Alright, we got a lot of bass gadgets to get through, so make use of the chapter markers if you need to, and make sure you stick around for the end where I'll cover the most important gadget that I think all bass players should have. First up are the funk fingers, which were dreamt up by legendary bassist Tony Levin in the 90s. These are little drumsticks that you attach to your plucking fingers. The idea is you get a totally different tone, different way to attack the bass, and maybe even come up with some fresh bass ideas. My rating? Translation, think about it. Think about it. They're definitely different. I have to admit that my reaction when I first put them on and started playing was, why would I ever want my bass to sound like this? And also there's a challenge of playing in rhythm. It's a very different muscle movement than normal plucking. So there's a learning curve, and I still kind of suck with them. But as I've gotten a little bit better at them, and spent more time with the sound, I've noticed I have more fun and kind of get into a groove and feel like I'm exploring. So to make these work, you need really good fretting hand muting, because the odds that you're gonna hit more strings than you mean to are basically 100% chance. So check out my muting fixes video if you need help with your fretting hand muting. I actually liked the tone more from the guitar triller that I reviewed last time, because I feel like I can get that sound, but I can also go softer, and it does a bunch of other weird strummy stuff that I never even really figured out how to use that you can't do with the funk fingers. But maybe I'm wrong about the tone, and this could work as like a slap alternative sound. They are pretty similar sounds in the way the waves are shaped. There's a big spike right when you hit, and then the sound tapers off dramatically. So I just think for the average bassist, they're not of much use. But if you think they might spark some creativity for you, then I think they're definitely worth the $28. What if instead of having to pluck your bass like a muggle, you could just wave your hands and make bass notes magically appear? Wingardium Bassiosa! This is the Hot Hand 3 by Source Audio. It is a handheld expression tool that uses an accelerometer to detect your movements and send the signal to whatever effects pedal you're running it into through the little bass station unit. Sounds weird, right? Let's check it out. My rating, translation, think about it. Think about it. Full disclosure, I don't feel like I'm very good with this thing. I've experienced a pretty steep learning curve trying to get a sense of where I am in the action and get it calibrated properly. But some people totally slay with this thing, and by some people I basically mean Nathan Navarro. So the biggest point of suckage for me with this thing is not knowing what expression signal I'm sending exactly, which is not a problem when you're using a standard expression pedal like this Moog EP1, because you can just feel with your foot. It's really obvious. When you're here, you're sending the minimum signal. When you're here, you're sending the maximum signal, and you only have this one plane to worry about. So it's a little bit of a mystery with this thing, and you have to figure it out by ear, which if you don't have your pedal settings and your calibration set up properly, can be pretty difficult. So maybe a solution for this for future versions would be to put some kind of display on the bass station with some numbers of like what signal you're sending from a minimum to a maximum number. So if you're really into effects, you already know how to use a normal expression pedal, then for $100, I think the Hot Hand is a good deal to check it out and see if it gives you any sounds that you're craving. But if effects and expressionating are new to you, is expressionating a word? I like it. If it's all new to you, don't get the hot hand yet. Get a standard expression pedal. See all the things you can do with one. You can do a lot of cool stuff with just a pedal. And then from there, maybe get a hot hand and see if it fills a niche for the sounds you're looking for. Bridge mutes are a cool way to completely change the tone of your bass, making it more muffled and kind of vintagey sounding, because this sound used to come from stock Fender bridge plates that had foam built into them. In the last Gadgets review, we looked at this, the Groove Gear Thump, which failed to give even muting. Here's the E and here's the G. Totally uneven, and same problem if you flip it around, because so many people asked me about this. Now the G is super muted, and the E is a lot less muted. So this is no good. We don't like this. So today we're looking at the Nordstrand NordyMute, which aims to be a higher quality plug-and-play muting solution. Let's check it out. Because the NordyMute pinches the string on either side rather than pressing up from the bottom like traditional foam, supposedly it won't affect your string's tuning and intonation as much. So let's put it to the test. I recorded each open string with no mute, the NordyMute, and with some traditional foam pushing up on the strings. And as you can see, the Nordy is still affecting the tuning a tiny bit, but it's less than the foam pressing up from under the strings. My rating, translation, get it. I should have put this in the utility gear section of this video, but it was so much fun to play with different muting options, especially that weird thing, that it felt a little more creativity boosting. So here we are. And at $40, that's kind of a lot to ask for a bridge mute, especially since you can just use a sponge or a piece of foam, but those options don't offer the ease of use and the longevity that the NordyMute offers. I don't know exactly how long these things last, but I did contact Nordstrand, and they said they've been making these for a few years, and they haven't heard of any of them breaking. So this is really durable neoprene foam rubber stuff. This is really stiff foam, so it mutes pretty aggressively, and because of that, I wouldn't say this is the only bridge mute you'll ever need, but you do get a lot of options. You can just put it on a little bit. You can put it on a little further and get even more muting because of the way that the slots are cut as you go deeper into the slot. You do have to pick the spacing you want between the slots cut in the rubber. Luckily for me, this is the 19mm spacing model, and it fit all the basses I tried it on. I tried it on this, I tried it on the Cirrus, I tried it on the Music Man, it all worked. So all in all, it sounds great, it's easy to use, and I like how it looks, it's kind of cool. And you can even use it to dampen the annoying click sound when you click like and subscribe to Bass Buzz. Alright, let's talk about it. It's the Pulse by Soundbrenner. It's a metronome, but you don't hear it, you feel it via the vibrating motor. So if you're getting ear fatigue from too much audio click track, or you've got a whole band you want to sync up to a click but you're not using an audio click track, Soundbrenner claims that this will make all your dreams come true. So it's hard to find a good place to strap this thing. Putting it on my fretting hand wrist felt like it disrupted my playing. Putting it on the plucking hand wrist means that the strap's rubbing against the bass. Obviously putting it in the mouth, not a great option. I think the best option would be to use the body strap and attach it to your chest, but of course the body strap doesn't come with the unit by default. One issue I've read about with these is some people have perceived irregular pulses, i.e. not keeping perfect time, which is pretty important for a metronome. And you don't have to pay $100 to get irregular pulses. You just buy your drummer a beer. Anyway, let's test how metronomic this thing actually is. I recorded it for 5 minutes straight at 120 beats per minute using an SM57 and this very high-tech mic stand. I ran 3 tests. The first one sagged by 31 samples, which translates to about 0.6 milliseconds of delay, which is not bad after 5 minutes. The second test actually got ahead by 11 samples, which is about 0.2 milliseconds. So for the third test, I turned on the preserve rhythm on disconnect function in the app, which should really be enabled by default, I think, and that got me down to 4 samples late, which is pretty negligible. So I'd say the Pulse survived this experiment pretty well, which is not to say you couldn't have more issues with irregular pulses in a stage environment. For example, I moved my phone, which was running the app that pairs to this, around the house, and I was able to get some disconnects just by moving 20 or 30 feet away. My rating? Translation? Forget it. I really wanted to like this thing. It seems like a really cool idea, but I just don't see it solving any meaningful problems for us bass players. Maybe if you're a drummer and you've already got too much click in your ears, you don't want to turn it up, this could be useful, but I've never had that issue. And supposedly it can help with just ear fatigue from listening to a click from a long time, but I think you can get the same issue with a vibration-based solution. You just get vibration fatigue instead of ear fatigue. It starts to feel really like annoying, just like buzzing on the same part of your body for minute after minute. For at-home practicing, I think this is actually a downgrade from a standard metronome. First of all, because it costs $100 and a normal metronome is $20 or less, or a metronome app is free, potentially. And there's no display on the unit, so if you want to see your BPM or do anything else interesting, you'd have to use the app anyway, so why not just use the free app? Another function of the Pulse is to sync up multiple pulses all through the same DAW like Ableton Live, so you could have your whole band using pulses on stage and theoretically be synced up. Here's the problem. In the product demo video from Soundbrenner, if you freeze the video and take it frame by frame, you can see that there are frames where some units are lit up and some units aren't. What that translates to is possibly 2 or 3 milliseconds of delay between units, which, think about your rhythm section, your drummer and your bass player hearing the click a few milliseconds apart. That could translate to a big impact on the feel of your song, whether it's live or in the studio. So that's my opinion, but what do you think? How could the Pulse be a win? Is this like a good idea that just needs some refining, or is the whole idea of a vibration-based metronome a wasted effort? Let me know what you think in the comments. Next up is the Spark amp by Positive Grid. Bass players are always looking for amps that are portable and affordable and good sounding, but most contenders don't tick all those boxes. So let's see how the Spark does. My rating? Translation? Think about it. Think about it. I'm really surprised that this is a think about it, because after my experience with the Black Star last time, I thought for sure this would be another forget it. But it's actually got some cool features. It's a decent amp, it's a decent multi-effects unit, and you can also use it as an interface to record your bass into your computer. The bass amp models in here are pretty cool, and at low practice volumes it sounds clean and undistorted, but obviously if you start bumping the volume on this thing, it'll distort and compress like any other tiny little amp. It's relatively noisy compared to the other amps I've played with at this volume. Check it out if I turn up the gain. Some major hiss going on. To use most of this amp's functions, you need to pair it with the smartphone app, from which you can control the tone and the effects and some of the other features we'll talk about. And the controls are pretty responsive. If I move one of the knobs, I'll move the gain knob. It moves pretty immediately as I'm moving my finger on the screen, which is cool. One thing to be aware of in the app is a lot of the default bass patches have a noise gate and a compressor turned on by default. This is not good. You should turn off the noise gate, turn off the compressor for most of your practicing, unless you really know what you're doing. Some of the other features I found just didn't really work, or they didn't work that well for bass players. For example, the auto chords feature is supposed to listen to a Spotify or a YouTube track and give you the chord changes at the right time as the track plays. In reality, this is what happened when I tried it out on this Don't Stop Believin' video that the app suggested to me when I opened it up. The chords are completely off sync and not with the song. I can imagine this would maybe work for like a contemporary pop song with 4 chords recorded to a click track, but anything other than that, it's definitely not going to work. And there's this smart jam function where it will listen to you play for a few bars and then give you a drum beat and a bass line to go along with what you're playing. This really isn't that useful for bass players. It did a pretty good job at picking up what notes I was playing when I fed it some easy to understand ideas. But then it plays me this crappy MIDI bass line with a drum beat. I'd rather just use a drum machine. It's not really doing anything that special. So at $300, the price on this thing actually kind of checks out. It's an okay amp, it's an okay multi-effects unit, it works as a digital audio interface, and it comes with some recording software. But for the money, you could get a much better amp. I think the $200 Fender Rumble 40 is a better amp for $100 less, and then you could pocket that $100 or spend it on a multi-effects unit or a digital audio interface if you actually need one of those things. So it's a nice little package, but when you're buying an amp, especially if it's going to be your only amp, your priority is for it to be a good amp, you know, not to be a bunch of other things. You don't need it to blend smoothies for you and make your coffee. You just need it to be an amp. And this thing is not the best amp you can get for $300. I would only buy this if you practice at super, super low volumes and you're willing to throw down even more money when you need to buy a bigger amp later on to actually play with people. There are a ton of cheap wireless units on the market now that allow you to just plug one into your bass, one into your amp, and then you're good to go, ready to practice, no cables. So let's see how they work. We're testing out 2 units today, the super cheap Getaria system and the more expensive Xvive or Xvive system, however you pronounce it. Xvive. So these are both digital wireless systems running at 2.4 gigahertz. And they both have lithium-ion rechargeable batteries, which seem great. I've used them both for hours without charging them, and they're holding up. They both feel kind of cheap and plasticky, like in a way that doesn't feel great quality-wise. But the tone checks out on both of these. I've played them both quite a bit, and I can't hear a difference between my cabled tone and the wireless tone. So what we're really concerned with here is latency. Latency is the time lag between when you actually perform or like pluck a string and when the sound comes out of your amp or goes into your recording software. So I ran a couple latency tests to see how these stack up compared to a good old cable. First, I sent a metronome click through either a 1-foot cable, a 30-foot cable, the Getaria, or the Xvive. Then I'm looking at how far behind the beat the resulting click gets recorded, which measures the latency of that particular signal path. Both cables had basically no latency. The more expensive Xvive had 9 samples of delay, which is about 0.2 milliseconds, and the cheaper Getaria had 25 samples of delay, which is about 0.5 milliseconds late. And that might not sound like much, but just listen to the cable track and the Getaria track together. There's a noticeable lag. This translated to bass playing as well. I tested a short slap riff, and you can hear a noticeable phasing effect if you listen to the track together with the cabled version. So here's the cabled version solo. And here's the cabled control along with the Xvive wireless signal. And then here's the Getaria along with its cable control. It's even worse with the phasing. My rating, translation, forget it. Don't get these. The reason I ran these latency tests in the first place is because when I first plugged into these units, I subjectively felt like there might be some latency. And it wasn't obvious enough to go, something is wrong. It was like just enough to make me feel like I was going crazy. I noticed myself feeling uninspired by the sound because of the later response. And so my concern is if you're not an experienced bass player or musician using one of these, you might feel that effect of feeling like uninspired and like something's a little off, but not be able to trace it back to the latency from your wireless unit. So let's break this down in terms of performance or practice. For performance, I would never ever trust a wireless as cheap as either of these on stage. I've had dropout issues even with more expensive 2.4 gigahertz wireless systems because it's a really competitive frequency band. There's a lot of stuff happening at 2.4 gigahertz, including a lot of Wi-Fi networks. So if you're gonna go wireless on stage, you need to do a lot more research, and you're going to need to invest a lot more money to get a reliable system, because if you've ever used a wireless on stage and had the bass drop out, which I have experienced a number of times, it's very unpleasant. And after that happens once, you will never fully trust your wireless system again, and you'll feel tense when you're using it, just knowing that at any second the bass can vanish. So the only reason left to get something like this would be for practicing. So if you think something like this would get you to practice more because it's more convenient and you have some money to burn, then maybe go for it. But as a teacher, I'm still really concerned about the latency. I wouldn't want somebody to learn their instrument with latency built into it, because it could significantly affect your sense of rhythm and time when you go on to try to play with people in the future. And I should stress, it's not really that either of these companies did anything wrong. They worked about as well as I'd think they would based on the price and the design. And the Xvive is definitely nicer than the Getaria, which makes sense because it's more expensive. It had less latency, and it also has some channel selecting options, which is nice. But it's just that the whole idea of a cheap wireless for low stakes playing doesn't really hold water for learning purposes or for money purposes. Okay, let's look at the Rody Bass Auto Tuner. No, not that kind of auto tune. This thing is supposed to take the guesswork out of tuning. You just stick it on your knob, pluck a string, and it'll detect your pitch and turn the knob automatically with its motor. So let's see how it works. First, let's run a speed test and see who's faster, man or machine. Alright, so the Rody is quite a bit slower than using a normal tuner, at least if you have some tuner experience. I was also concerned about the accuracy. I didn't really feel like I was in tune after that, so we're going to check it against my Peterson strobe tuner, which is kind of the gold standard of tuners. So after tuning with the Rody, the E string is flat. You can see the displays going to the left. That's what in tune looks like. A string is also flat. D string is also flat. G string was also flat. So that's 0 for 4 for the Rody. My rating? Translation, forget it. Who needs this thing? It's so slow. It's so much slower than a normal tuner. It's $150, which is more than I paid for my amazing Peterson strobe tuner. And the company only claims a tuning accuracy within 2 cents, which is not that good. Even a cheap Korg tuner will get you within 1 cent. If you want to see some more in-depth tests with this gadget, Jamie Lewis did a really good video review on this. He did a bunch more cool tests, so you can check that out. The link in the description. Not only have I found this thing to be slow and unreliable, but as a teacher, I actually think it's bad for you to let something like this do your tuning for you, because tuning your bass is a skill that you want to be developing over time, because it's useful. And it's not actually that hard to tune your bass. I teach you how to do it in the very first lesson of my Beginner to Badass course, which you can check out over at bassbuzz.com. And for the money, the cost of this thing blows my mind. You could get a really good Korg tuner for 20 bucks, and then you've got $130 more to spare. You could get a couple bass lessons and have a professional show you how to use your tuner, and you could get really, really good at it in one day and not need something like this. Okay, let's look at the guitar glove, or the musician's practice glove. It seems to be called both. There are a lot of reasons you might want to wear a glove when playing. Apparently they can help with excessive sweating, they can help with nerve issues, focal dystonia, they can help with arthritis pain, they can help with nickel allergies. Never made it as a wise man. I couldn't go. But any old glove would help with those issues, so why should you spend 10 bucks on this musician's glove? Let's check it out. My rating? Translation, shortlist it. I was actually surprised with how much I liked this thing. A cheapo glove does work okay, but there are a few ways that this thing is better. It has better moisture wicking. I wore both of these on a hot day for a while, and this hand was a lot less sweaty. And the weave of the nylon or whatever is a lot tighter and cleaner, whereas normal kind of cheapo winter gloves like this are more fuzzy, and I liked the cleaner feel for playing. And also the durability seems a lot better than your average cheapo glove. These are $10, and the company says they could last anywhere from 20 to 50 hours. I've only used this one for a few hours, but it hasn't worn out at all. Whereas my cheapo glove, which are usually $3 to $5 or whatever, I doubt you'd get more than 10 hours out of one of these, and this one already has a hole in it from use on previous cold gigs. If you're a person with any of those issues I mentioned earlier, I would actually call this a get it. But for the average person, I don't think you need to wear a glove while you're playing. If you're a beginner and you're trying to avoid raw skin or calluses or something, just play a bunch and your skin will get tough and you won't have to worry about it. And if you like the feel of less friction, you have some other options, like something like fast fret that you just rub on the strings and it coats them a bit, or you can try a coated string like elixirs. I've heard some people like wearing gloves just to cut down on string noise from round wound strings making little zingy noises when they're sliding around. I personally don't think you should wear a glove just to get rid of that sound, because most of those sounds only happen here acoustically, going from this side of the string into your ear, but they don't come out of your amp, so they don't really matter in a performance context. I've mostly worn gloves just for cold gigs, which this wouldn't be the right glove for. So if you have more glove experience than me, let me know what you think in the comments below. Just make sure you don't buy one of these. It's not the right kind of bass. So you're learning on an acoustic bass guitar and there's nowhere to rest your thumb, which sucks. You can kind of fake it on the edge of the fingerboard, but it doesn't work that well. Enter the Bonk No Drill Acoustic Bass Thumb Rest. You just stick this thing on the side of your sound hole, tighten it up with a screwdriver, and you've got somewhere to put your thumb. My rating, translation, get it. If you have an acoustic bass guitar, get this thing. It's $15. It's really easy to install. I can do it, so it must be easy. And it really changes the game with how you can place your plucking hand, and it's just really cool. And if you're a crafty woodworker person, you could probably make this yourself, but it's only $15 and you can save yourself some time. Shortest gadget review yet. That's all I have to base about that. If you've ever come home from a gig with the sound of ringing cymbals in your ears, you've experienced the pleasure of damaging your hearing. Wearing some kind of ear protection is crucial for keeping your ears working through your whole music career. So we're going to look at a few different options, from the super cheap to the slightly more expensive to the very more expensive. So rather than doing a demo, because how do I even demo earplugs for you, I just want to share a couple quick hearing loss horror stories. So I played in a band with somebody for years who had been playing loud music for over 40 years with no hearing protection. Not only was this person basically half deaf in conversation, but their instrument's tone had gotten progressively brighter and nastier over time to compensate for the high-end loss in their hearing. So to my undamaged ears, the tone just sounded awful. And I know another guy who's a really great bass player who has tinnitus, and the ringing from the tinnitus makes it unpleasant to hear high-frequency sound. So because of that, he rolls all the high-frequency sound off of his amp, so it sounds all dark and muffly. Which isn't actually the tone he wants. He's like taking beautiful solos and stuff, but they all sound muffly, so it's just kind of tragic. So between the deafness and the bad tone especially, I hope this is enough to scare you straight into wearing hearing protection. And I'm sure more stories will be told in the comments, so if you have a hearing loss or hearing protection story to share, please share it below, because we should all be protecting our ears on stage, no matter what instrument we play. So we're going to look at three options here. First up are the standard foam earplugs, which are super cheap, and these aren't the best option because they make everything sound really muffly, as you know if you've ever worn these, but they're still useful to bring with you on the road if you're sharing a hotel room with a snoring guitar player, for instance. The next step up is some kind of flanged earplug like these Heroes, or Etymonic Research makes these too. These are a lot less muffly than the foam, and they're pretty good. I use these as my main gigging earplugs for a number of years, but you're still not going to get totally accurate frequency response because they're not molded to your ear. but they're less than $10 a pair, and they're way better than foam. The top tier of hearing protection would be some kind of custom molded plug like I have here from Sensaphonics. These are a lot more expensive. I paid like $250 for these, including the audiologist appointment to get fitted. But if you want accurate frequency response, meaning stuff sounds the way it actually sounds to you, then this is the only way to go. And what's cool about these is you can pop the filters in and out and swap them with different filters that filter different amounts of sound. My rating for ear protection, can you guess? Translation, get it, get it, get it, get it, get it, get it. Well, which option is best for you kind of depends on some things. Obviously, the best sound quality is going to be something custom molded like these Sensaphonics, but they're $250 or somewhere thereabouts. Whereas these Heroes or Etymotic Research flange plugs are like $8, $10 or something. So if you are making money from gigging and you want really good sound quality and you trust yourself not to lose small valuable things, then you should look into getting these. Because when I first got these, I was just blown away. I was like, oh, I don't feel like I'm wearing earplugs. It just sounds, everything just sounds quieter, but it still sounds like the way I expect it to sound. So these are awesome. But if you are not a professional musician or you think you're going to lose them, because that would suck, then just get flanged plugs. They're super cheap, they work pretty well, and they'll still protect your ears. And earplugs aren't just for playing music either. They can also be used to manage gear acquisition syndrome.
Babe, weren't you going to take out the trash?
Huh?
You're not buying gear again, are you?
Sorry, babe. Can't hear you.